Where I grew up, girls were expected to collect water, clean and mind the hearth, while boys went to school. I grew older and was married to a man who did not work. His family, now my family, had no money. In this new family, I faced physical, sexual and emotional abuse. I felt I had no options. The only places I could find work did not pay well enough to support my family or send my children to school. The conditions were bad, the hours long, and the manager knew we had nowhere else to go. One day, my neighbor told me that she found a new job. She said she was learning new skills and earning a good wage. She invited me to visit her work. The workshop was a busy place with lots of things being made. It was a different world. The manager said that I could work there too.
Everybody, welcome. Nice to have you. Happy International Women's Day to you all. And I'm super excited to have you all here today, and especially excited about this panel and the women I'm getting to share it with. So maybe first quickly I will introduce myself and then we'll do a little round of introduction. I would be super interested in talking with my panelists about being a female entrepreneur in the fair trade sector and what that means to us, and maybe, you know, also what it meant during COVID and in the ways we maybe also deal with some of the problems that we encounter. And so I am the founder of Folk Days. I'm also the co-author of a business book that is called Starting a Revolution: What We Can Learn from Female Entrepreneurs About the Future of Business. And I'm super excited to be here today. And I will pass on to one of my first panelists, who's Joyce. Maybe you can just briefly introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Lisa. Hi, I'm Joyce. I'm the CEO for Fair Trade Scotland. Thank you.
Caterina, do you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Sure. Hi. Welcome, everybody. My name is Caterina Occhio. I'm the founder and the CEO of a social enterprise. There's a member of WFTO that is called CIMI.
Welcome. Sasi, do you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Sasi. I'm the founder of Earth Air in Malaysia. So I'm calling from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia at the moment. Earth Air is a social enterprise. We work with refugee women, indigenous women, like artisans in Malaysia.
Thank you. And Sophie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Sophie Tack. I'm working for Oxfam Magasin du Monde, which is a Belgian fair trade organization. I'm also a board member of the World Fair Trade Organization and the Fair Trade Advocacy Office. I'm very happy to join.
Welcome, everybody. I'm not sure if Selyna is here now. I don't think so. She wanted to come in from Sri Lanka, but they have a shortage, electricity shortage, so she might join us later. But before we start going into the subject of entrepreneurship and female entrepreneurship, I would love to ask each one of you to tell me a little bit about what the International Women's Day, which is today, means to you personally, and maybe also what it means in the country you're from, or how do you celebrate it? So to go in the same order, Joyce, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Thank you, Lisa. For me, I think it puts a spotlight on calling to action, looking at the gender disparity that's across the board, you know, in every country. It kind of like highlights that importance of bringing women on board, and for unity for women, celebrate each other, you know, look at our challenges and stuff. Here in Scotland, unfortunately, due to COVID, these days things are changing, but years past, we used to hold women events celebrating different cultures and stuff. So yeah, in a nutshell, it highlights the story of women's struggle and also celebrating the equality within us. Thank you.
Caterina, do you want to say something
Yes.
about Women's Day?
Hi. To me, it's a bit more complex. I'm Italian. I live in the Netherlands, and my artisans are based in Tunisia. So traditionally for me, what I didn't know what Women's Day was, but my father would always show up with a big bunch of mimosa. He was the first feminist I ever met. The mimosa in the Italian culture, where I was raised, are a flower that symbolizes strength and fragility. So my father always told me it's a dichotomy that I want you to cherish. And don't be afraid to show both sides of you as a woman. So from that little small yellow flower, it grew for me that in the years, I'm proud myself to say that I'm an active feminist and an advocate for gender equality. It grew into something that I felt on myself and that I want to share with the rest of my sisters, which is a sense of community and a sense of common struggle for the advancement of women in the world.
Thank you so much. Sasi, what about you? What does the International Women's Day do for you?
I think for the last couple of years, I've been trying to advocate for the Malaysian government to invest in greater care for childcare and for family, because I suppose, a lot of women around me, single or married, are taking care of like their families or children. And, it's been a lot more difficult for them to get into employment. So I've been trying to advocate, that we should see investment into childcare and senior care as a social good for society. Because we need more women to be able to explore all of their skills and strengths, and for them to have the ability to do that.
Thank you so much for that. Sophie, what does the International Women's Day mean for you?
Well, for me, it's a very important and necessary day. Here in Belgium, we are just starting the celebrations with a big march today, and we will continue the whole week. And I really think it's an important day because we have seen it also in the video. I mean, we live in a world with increasing inequalities and 1%, and it's so clear that in every country, every day women are confronted with discrimination and with inequalities. And we see that most of the people living in poverty are women, and women earn less than men and are less represented. So I really think it's important to celebrate this day and to transform together like gender and power relations. And I believe that collective action, like on the Women's Day, a collective action of men and women can really make a difference. So I'm very excited.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts on this. For me personally, it's actually a public holiday because in Berlin, since a couple of years, everybody's off work, which is super nice, but at the same time means no kindergarten. So you might hear during this talk some very loud banging in the background. These are my children trying to get into my room. So don't be afraid. It's nothing dangerously is happening. I'm just so it's making it a little bit harder to be political on Women's Day if the kids are home. But nevertheless, I'm very happy that I get to talk to you guys. And we had a little bit of a preparation talk yesterday. And I think one of the issues that came up very strongly was, what being a female entrepreneur actually means to us, and especially what it maybe meant to us during, or what it still means to us during COVID. Like, how did it affect us in the way we were handling the situation, and maybe also, the obstacles we encountered. So if you are open to this, I would love to start off with this as a first question. So, how did it make you as a female, or what do you think made your way of getting through this crisis special, being a female entrepreneur? And I don't know who wants to start, but I would just, wait for a little sign and then pass on the word. Cool, Sophie, go ahead.
Yes, well, I think the pandemic, it had a huge impact on my organization. Like I said, we are a Belgian fair trade organization. We have about 60 shops in the French-speaking part of Belgium. So the pandemic had a huge impact. In March 2020, we had to close down all our shops. So the turnover was like zero. We had a warehouse full of products. Slowly then we could reopen again with some food products. But I mean, financially, I think like for a lot of other fair trade organizations, financially the impact was enormous. And I think it was also very hard for our volunteers. We work with 4,500 volunteers, 60 staff. All events were cancelled. There were no activities. People have to work from home. So it was like very difficult and challenging also because our producers in the South could not produce or export. And it was really very important also to clearly communicate, to stay connected with people. People get isolated, I think, and to support them and to daily, I think, adjust an action plan to survive this as an organization. And what I have seen in the fair trade movement in this crisis is a huge solidarity, which I didn't see necessarily in the conventional market. I mean, we did not let our producers down in this very difficult period. For instance, in my organization, we started fundraising in 2021 because we wanted to help our producers to survive. So for me, the essential thing on this pandemic was also a big wave of solidarity between the fair trade movement. And I think that was very important.
Sasi, you talked a little bit about this yesterday. Like, what was the situation like in Malaysia, and how did you cope with it?
Yeah, I mean, so I think in Malaysia, the lockdown started on March 18th, 2020. And at that point, of course, you go to any pharmacy, none of the pharmacies had face masks. And then we started hearing about all of the hospital doctors and nurses struggling to find PPE. And luckily for us, Malaysia had manufacturers of the PPE material. So we kind of got some, and then we were working with other social enterprises, and we were sharing patterns for PPE sewing. And then WFTO Asia gave us, talking about the solidarity. Like, I saw that it was WFTO Asia and other social enterprises in the region. They shared with us like templates for face masks on how to sew them. So the first week of the pandemic, we were literally just trying to figure out like sewing PPE. And then over the next few months, we had stitched almost like 250,000 pieces of PPE for Malaysian frontliners. At that point, I was obviously afraid. I mean, before, when the pandemic started, because the government said businesses cannot operate, like everybody has to shut down. But then slowly they kind of came out and said, okay, if you are an essential service, you can operate. So because we were making PPE, we were allowed to operate. And because of that, we were able to provide income for almost 100 refugees. We were able to fight xenophobia in Malaysia, because a lot of Malaysians were saying, oh, immigrants and refugees are bringing COVID into this country. We should kick them out. So I spoke to media and I said, look, can you cover what we are doing? Because here are refugees sewing PPE to save Malaysian lives. They're not here to just sponge off of this country. So essentially for 2021, I mean, it ended up becoming our best year yet. What I expected to be a horrible business situation, when we started helping and we didn't think about making money, but we were like, there's a need, what can we do? And we just started doing that, ended up becoming like our best year in revenue. So it was a great, lesson for me that, no matter how bad things are and you're in crisis, just do good. Try to look at how you can help, and then good will come out of it.
That reminds me a little bit of the story you told us yesterday, Caterina, that also from a very low point to a very high point within COVID times. Do you want to tell about that a little bit?
Well, as I said, we make jewelry, and our jewelry are handcrafted in Tunisia by women survivors of violence. So, which means in that culture that if you are a single mother, or if you just, kind of betrayed your family, that's the way you're seen very often, you are left without any assistance from the community you were born and raised into. So when COVID struck, and there was also no welfare system in North Africa at the moment, there is no such thing as what we have been experiencing in some country in the north. So to keep it short, we were on the edge of bankruptcy. April 20, yes, that's the photo. April 2020, I remember sending a text because saying, I don't know if Ivan can pay the rent. We had to pay the salary to all our artisans because they didn't have any other mean of support. And something happened that basically was a small miracle. What you see now projected is the heir to the throne of the Netherlands that went on public TV on the 27th of April and wore one of our jewelry. So all of a sudden, our online store exploded, and in 2 weeks we were sold out. And we could pay for all the salary, all the expenses. We couldn't produce anymore because we didn't have access to raw material. But contrary to what happened to Sasi in Malaysia, we cannot easily transform our product, but we had access to another market because we were noticed, and then something else happened. We were noticed by a very big luxury brand working in fashion, which is Chloe. And so this solidarity effect, but also I think what Sasi described, this ability to adapt quickly and to make the best out of what could be a big limitation, allowed us to start collaborating with a high-end fashion house. And all of this transformation did result in our best year ever as well. So it's a good story. It's a successful story if you want. But I think, coming to your question, what is the underlying lessons that maybe as a female entrepreneurs we could share with you today is the ability to work with intuition, to work with adaptability and resilience, and to say, look, I don't know what we're going to do, but we will make sure it's going to work out. And solidarity is there, but you need to reach out. You need to make sure the solidarity finds you back. So you need to be out there. And we did, and it's a happy ending so far. But it's every day a struggle. Now we are facing another huge terror from the Ukrainian war. And women are also showing an incredible bravery. And I saw incredible images this morning. I think we all are. And I think the best way to contribute is to support our relevant community, especially the female community, with as much as we can. And if we can't make a difference, maybe for the entire world, just make sure that what we are responsible for, our community, does have better conditions and have a second chance most of the time.
Yeah, I think that's something that we found out yesterday, that is very much like happening in line depending on who we are, where we are at the same time. And I think this is something also I experienced a lot when COVID started in Germany, and of course in a different situation. We have a social welfare system, also we had financial help, but at the same time in the beginning nobody knew what would come, so there was a very high degree of uncertainty as well. And I think something I observed, and I think many of you observed this as well, and I think, Caterina, you just described it a little bit, that, I mean, since I started Folkdays 9 years ago, I had so many crises, and it's like there was never an easy year. It always felt like, okay, now we are over the hump, and then something else happened. So it feels like, it's like a crisis mode all the time, because as many of you, we never really got any external finances or any investors or anything. They were just not very interested in our business model. So we always had to manage with what we had. And I feel like I have a lot of male friends, entrepreneurs in my circle of friends, and I felt like, for us, like for me, automatically in a crisis, I'm trying to come up with creative solutions of how to get out of it. And I saw a lot of my male friends who had, for the first time, been in a really deep crisis, and they were almost like, they were in shock, and they didn't know what to do, and they didn't move, and so it was really something. And you described it as resilience, but it was something I definitely observed during COVID in my circle of female entrepreneurs, that everybody came up with really interesting, cool business models. Of course, also luck was involved, but being able to adapt to situations that are not in your hands, I feel like this is something that I've observed a lot. So yeah, very interesting. But Joyce, you just dropped out, but you're luckily back. Oh.
I mean, I'm having a nightmare of connection. So been trying to switch on between gadgets. I do apologize for that. Yeah, I mean, for us, because we are not frontline services, so it was a time that it really highlighted of the inequality that exists, especially in fair trade, and trade versus aid, because now the borders were closed. So if the borders were closed, places like where we work in Malawi, there was no aid coming. So it really gave us the motivation to advocate for the grown home industries, to ensure that producers are given a fair deal of it all, keep the businesses flowing back home, because if markets abroad are closed, that means the people cannot, we can't. So we're still doing it. We're working so hard in advocating for the voice of the farmers and ensure there's value added, the paid premium, because we believe that if the products were given a fair amount of income, most people could have had a cushion. But without that, a lot of farmers really, really struggled. So yeah, COVID for us has really highlighted the disparities that exist between the big corporations and the little corporations and the smallholder farmer, and the lack of voice. There's no voice for the small farmer. So how do we ensure that we live in a global village whereby if this happens again, communities are cushioned? And that was a big learning curve. Yeah.
Sophie, do you want to add something, or because I think this is something very important. What did we also learn from this crisis, and how should it impact the work we do as a fair trade community? I mean, Joyce, you just mentioned it. I mean, having a concept of fair trade that doesn't allow farmers to actually build up a cushion, or have some kind of, support system in place. I think this is something very, not very unique. It's something that definitely is problematic. And also, I mean, we talked a little bit about it. What needs to change in order to maybe also not get into crisis situations all the time, because I'm sure we all manage to manage them somehow, but it's something that is super tiring. And I don't know how it is with you guys, but I don't want to live a life like that for another 20 years or 15 years, because it's exhausting. I mean, you always have to firefight. And, I would just like to have 1 year where there's no heavy worrying. And, so maybe my question goes out more into the future. Like, what would we need? Where do we see, necessity to change? Like what do we need to not having to be so resilient? Maybe that's my question.
Mm.
Sophie,
Well, yeah. Well, for me, one of the main learnings, I think, through this crisis, I mean, we just mentioned COVID, but we could also talk about all the other crises, like the climate crisis. I think if I learned something, it's like, I think more than ever, we need a radical change, because the norm should be to respect human beings and the environment. And instead, we are in a system that exploits people and exploits the planet. So it's not sustainable. And I think COVID showed it, and we are more and more confronted with also the consequences of climate change. So we need a change. And I think this is also what we try to build up with the fair trade model, which is another model, an alternative model. And I think we need to continue to put pressure on political and economic decision makers to make a change. And for me, consumers and citizens have a very important role to play. I think it's quite urgent. We have no time to lose. And I think a real way forward is the collective action of men and women. But I think it's clear that the way we are producing, the way we are consuming, and then throw things away, it's just not sustainable. So for me, the main learning is that we need a radical change.
Caterina?
Yes, Sophie, indeed. I mean, I think we are on the edge. The 28th of February, a very important report came out from UN talking about how the window for us to reverse climate change is closing down. So the need to act. Unfortunately, it didn't went much noticed because of the urgent situation we have in Ukraine. But I think that it's clearly emerging the need for a systemic change, a new paradigm of making business that I think what the fair trade and particularly women have been pioneering. So we discussed that yesterday as well. If we go beyond the gender issue, which is indeed an issue anyway, I mean, obviously the numbers are there. I think what we have been as women entrepreneurs bringing forward is a set of what in sociology is described as feminine value versus masculine value that have been the basic principle according to which our actual system is working. And when I mean that, as you say correctly, Sophie, masculine and feminine values have to be bring forward by both men and women. And to give a concrete example, I mean, a masculine value is, for example, a conflict resolution by fighting over issues, while a feminine value is conflict resolution by compromise and negotiation. And in a masculine value, managers are expected to be decisive and assertive, while in a feminine approach, managers should use intuition and strive for consensus and bring stress on solidarity and quality of work life of all the people involved in the process. From my side, I don't come from fashion, but I work in fashion. I think, like many of you, fashion or home decor, we make non-food products. So we don't work with farmers. We work with artisans, and more than 80% of the workforce are women. Women, and only 3% of them is in top management. Today, I love what WFTO published, that contrary to the normal way to do business, fair trade business have over 50% of women leaders at the head of the fair trade enterprise. So this feminine value that I think WFTO, besides being led by men or women, have brought forward in the world, I think this represents a new reference model that we should also continue bring forward.
Can I just add to that, Lisa?
Yes, of course. Go ahead. And I just say hi to Selyna because she just joined us. Go ahead, Joyce.
Hi, Selyna. Yeah, I think we should call it for what it is, right? I remember when fair trade was introduced. I'm a farmer's daughter, right? And it was like, it's going to give my parents and other people a fair deal. But look what's happening to fair trade, right? We've got big cooperatives who are coming in and pushing small farmers out. We still have people going to other countries, getting their raw products and selling them at high prices. So we are still in the same position that we were. We've just changed cover of what it is. So for me, it is a systematic level problem which needs a system that needs to challenge it. If you look at procurement, if you are a female and you go and try and do procurement, think about how, oh, you are just worthy. They don't really take you serious. You know, when our male counterparts are regarded as if they know it all. And I think time has come now that we really need to look at how fair trade is progressing and where are the problems, and trying to address them. Because I think collaboratives have happened, coordination is happening and stuff, but still the problem still exists. I don't see us reaching the SDGs. The SDGs is just like you go to UN, SDG this, SDG that. But look on the ground, what's happening. We're not really working towards a system that's equal, a system that's fair, a system that's just. And the governments need to be called to account. You know, they can't just put wool over us and think things are gonna change. So I think coming together and challenging what's happening on the ground without fear that because we are women, we can't do that. And as Caterina was saying, the workforce is women dominated, and it ends there. From the products, when the products leave, whether it's farms or whatever, then it all goes in the hands of somebody else. I don't think it's fair.
Yeah, thanks, Joyce. And I think this is also something that I find super interesting and also very important, that we really ask ourselves not only what do we need as a society, but also what do we need from the fair trade movement in order to get to a position where we can actually increase our impact as female entrepreneurs. And, you know, I mean, there's also a lot of money in this sector, to be honest. I mean, a lot of ministries are financing projects. And I know very many projects that I love and that are like super radical and very great, but they never get money. So I feel like, you know, having a very honest discourse on that is super essential. And, you know, fair trade is better than conventional, but still we need to challenge the fundamentals and also the way we construct value chains that in the end don't really talk about dividing profit, but only about premiums, right? I mean, you get a little bit more for your, you know, for your product, but not, you know, going in a radical way of saying, okay, the profit needs to be divided along the value chain. But Selyna, sorry, we are already in the midst of the discussion, and I would love to hear some thoughts from you. I mean, we discussed our roles as entrepreneurs, but also, in, you know, like in the positions we are in, like how we dealt with COVID, and what were our learnings, and also jumped into, you know, what do we need as a community to thrive and to not be constantly in this kind of firefighting mode. So if there are any ideas or thoughts that you would like to share, I would be really happy to hear them.
Yeah. Really sorry for coming in late. We have some power cut issues in Sri Lanka, and yeah, anyway, I'm sure that every one of you have said everything I was going to say. So I'm not going to say much here. And maybe even it's probably a recap to, and probably we've spoken about collaboration, we've spoken about resilience, we've spoken about putting our communities first, right? We've spoken about the fact that, you know, it's we probably as entrepreneurs, we have always, throughout COVID, we have put our values first, our purpose first. And that is why perhaps that we have ended up after COVID still here, still talking, still running business that is making impact. So yes, Lisa, I think I'll just come into the conversation, but I'm sure my sisters have done exactly spoken about all of this.
where we definitely, what we did yesterday, which I really liked, was that we took a little moment to celebrate that we are all still here in terms of entrepreneurs. And I think this is something that we do too little, you know, because
it's an achievement in itself that we are
yeah,
still
right?
surviving.
I mean, for us, it's 9 years. Sasi said it's also 9 years for her. I don't know, Selyna, how you know, it's like how long?
9 years too. Wow, we are old.
Yeah. 30 years. My mother started it, and yeah, 30 years up and running.
30.
Yeah.
Not
So
bad.
I think there's a lot to be said about women being in leadership and having that resilience and that honesty to really continue to be purpose-led. Because it is very easy, isn't it, to kind of be deterred, to be steered away, to think of profit. But I think this is where perhaps we speak of these feminine qualities or feminist qualities, as you would say, Lisa, of leadership and business.
Yeah, I mean, like when you guys were just speaking, I just suddenly thought about, you know, what was going through my mind a lot of the time during, I mean, COVID period specifically, because like what Caterina said, you know, it was the main thing on my mind was how am I going to pay salaries and how are artisans going to eat? You know, because borders were cut, we were not able to give them work. So you know, I think part of being a social enterprise leader is also that it's that you carry this burden in your heart about the communities and the people that you work with. And often that is what drives me to wake up in the morning and keep going because I'm thinking about all of these women and families that depend on the work that we're doing. And, you know, and that really keeps you like spurs you to keep going, you know, to find a way and like what Caterina said about being adaptable. I mean, you know, we work with, in this photo, as you see, you know, we work with natural fibers, we work with jewelry. We don't make PPE, you know, but at that time, we found that to be an opportunity. We found that to be a time where we could help artisans that way. And we could make a product, a new product that we had never made before and survive. You know, so it's like because you're small, you're nimble, you're agile, you're able to adapt your business model quickly, perhaps better than other businesses that are much larger or have very entrenched bureaucratic systems. You know, I think that was the good thing that I saw coming out, and also noticing that during COVID and after COVID, I've definitely noticed a greater awareness amongst consumers about why buying products with social good matters. So I've noticed that people are asking more questions. Like, I mean, it's like you feel like, oh, you know, you're slaving away for 9 years and like, you know, no one really cares very much. And then suddenly during COVID and after COVID, it's like everybody's like so interested. So in that sense, I think it's been great. Like the crisis actually has brought about some positive things.
Yeah.
If I may add one thing to what you just said, Sasi, I mean, I think we have a great opportunity coming our way. There is indeed a greater awareness. I'm very confident of the Generation Z that their power and their understanding of the power of purchase. And I think there is a great opportunity coming our way. The fact that we survived means that we will be possibly able to catch also this other opportunity, but we have to be prepared. One thing that we learned from COVID, I mean, from this opportunity we had by working with big brand, and I think we should really become and replace the new business as usual way to produce in the supply chain. We are a very relevant and very alternative. And what we learned as women artisans on the ground, I also work with, you know, recycled silver. You know, people now are talking about, oh my God, you work with the recycled system, are conscious of you. Well, we didn't do it because we wanted to do it consciously, but because when you know, there was the easiest solution. You know, why using new material when we have old one? That's the way, you know, women always work. But besides that, I think these opportunities coming up, what we learned is that almost good is not good enough from our side. We had to raise our bar to work and to really be an alternative to existing supply chain. We need to have a higher standard of quality, of professionalism. We discussed that yesterday, and make sure that we are a viable and reliable source of production made by combining purpose and profit. Because we have to show that managing the double bottom line of economic and social advancement is a possible movement, is a possible solution. And we are there to prove them. We have to resist and make sure that they see us a viable alternative, that we are seen as a structure, not a capsule, nice little collaboration to work with, but as a real serious partner, business partner, and as a woman, because we have much more to offer. So we have to grab this chance, girl.
I think very true, Caterina. I would add to that I think in terms of funding for women's social business, that's lacking. And you can look at all reports that's come from either the Economic Forum or to all the business social enterprise organizations that are there. So making sure that we amplify that voice in terms of how our businesses are funded sustainably, of course, not just giving us a little bit of drop and then hope will go away tomorrow, and also the promotion of trade, not aid, because I think aid has lasted its course. Now it's about time that whereby communities, girls coming from school, we see in every country there's high unemployment rates, but that can be solved through social enterprises. So yeah, I don't think we've got a big job. We just got a job that needs to us bang home and knock on more doors, make people uncomfortable, make them feel uncomfortable that these women are not going to go anywhere. Let's try and do something. Yeah.
There is one word that I love from UK. I don't know if it's Scotland. I'm not sure. It's the social value program. And one of the words that I love the most is my new credo is social procurement. So making sure that purchase power of big organization is used for a real positive social impact by providing jobs. No more aid, no more philanthropy, no more charity.
No.
Of course, charity is necessary in time of crisis, clear.
Yeah.
But then after that, we want to have jobs. We want to have, living wages jobs.
Let people feed themselves. Don't keep giving people fish. They don't want it because when the fish gets to Africa, it's rotten. They want to fish themselves in Lake Malawi. They want to do things for themselves. And aid has disabled a lot of communities. And honestly, I'm not going to stop banging about it until the day I go and make my makeup. It has to stop.
And
give us some funding.
If I can add as well, I mean, really echoing on and building on what Joyce and Caterina have said. Absolutely. I think the world is catching up on this fair trade discourse, right? I mean, we're a 30-year company, like we've been doing it for years before it was sexy and all the rest of it, right? So, but at the same time, I think now we can't rest on our laurels to say, we've been doing this thing forever, that the world is now requiring, because frankly, other companies, bigger companies, catch on to trends, and frankly, they have bigger marketing budgets, right?
Much
as simple as that, yeah? So I think what we should do is to make the bar higher, like push it, because I'll give you an example that we're doing at Selyna. It can be controversial, but I'm doing it anyway. So we are looking at using blockchain technologies. Blockchain simply because it's the best technology out there, not because it's blockchain and it's trending, right? To have full transparency and traceability and impact measurement for my system, for our supply chain. Because what we are seeing is that the world is now going to fit into these compliance structures. We need to think, okay, you know what? You can be compliant. We are going to be transparent. Can you be transparent? So it's us kind of pushing the boundary because we can. And it's something that we have done honestly for years and years and years. And I think it's our responsibility, no matter how hard, despite the fact that there can be a sustainable trend globally which can help our businesses. I still think it's our responsibility to push it one step further and not be complacent and not be just happy that the world is catching up, So I
And
really,
fight gender washing, fight brands and company on 8th of March saying how great they do for the women, a great program in March, and then in the end it's like, hi, sorry, how much to pay the women that make your garments? By the way, could we please? Oh, thank
and
you.
I think one of the issues that causes greenwashing, gender washing, whatever it is the lack of transparent impact monitoring, right? So even with certifications and guarantee systems, there's only so much that you can report on your impact. It's finally pictures, videos that sell product, right? Even though you have these wonderful big compliance documents in your factories and workshops. So how do we take this? And this is where I find blockchain fascinating. I mean, it's still very much at the start of the journey and it's going to be very painful. I can already see that. But I think we have to push. I mean, yesterday I was telling my husband, like, why am I doing this? I can just chill and let ride this wave. But yeah, you guys know the answer. Why we keep
Yeah, but when we keep pushing, I mean, we also have to take that as an opportunity to improve what we do, to improve our product and to improve our services and make sure that we are beautiful, meaningful, and profitable at the same time.
I really like this atmosphere of, pushing boundaries. I felt like a friend of mine who's a fellow feminist. She said, we are in it for the loving fight. And I think this is something that really resonates with me, like fighting for something, but also having a lot of love for your community with you and doing it in a way that is not aggressive, but something that is, building
Assertive.
Yeah. Assertive, collaborative, it's not about who's the enemy, but more like, okay, where do we want to go in terms of progress? And I really like this. With a little eye towards the timing, I would love to make a final round and hear each of you once again. And I think my question, and I think many of you said it in different words, but like going out of this, like what do we need as female entrepreneurs from the fair trade community in order, to forward our goals. You can also use this time for something else, but just to put it in one or two sentences, what do you need? And maybe I start off, and then we do the same round as before. But I think we really need, even in the global north, in quotation marks, we need representation, meaning females in leading position in the fair trade industry, and also not white females, to be honest. This is very, very important, I feel like, for the fair trade movement in Germany and also in other countries in Europe. So this is something I'm really hoping and wishing for the future. And I would pass on to Joyce.
Thank you. I think for me, we need to give the voice to those people who are producing products. We need to have a platform whereby, it's not top-down system anymore. There gotta be a platform where decisions which are being made that impacts on their lives, they sit at that table. Time has come now whereby we cannot have another 20 years of this. We need to look at the way things have happened and what we've learned from it, but also create spaces so that the generation that's coming after us has got a world that they can enjoy rather than what we have at the moment. So yeah, a voice to the farmers and other producers. Thank you.
Thanks, Joyce. Who wants to go next?
I can go next. Yeah.
Cool.
I think for me, one of the things that I feel, I feel a bit lonely in Malaysia because we're the only only fair trade organization in the whole country. So I think one of the things, like I was speaking to a journalist this morning, and there's a lot of awareness about eco consciousness and environmental, buying products that are environmentally friendly, but there's very little awareness about everything else that fair trade represents, about fair opportunity, about good wages, about good working conditions. So I feel like there's not been as much awareness about the human side of things. So I'd like to see greater growth and awareness of understanding of the 10 fair trade principles and why that matters, that we are creating wholesome businesses. And this is a business model that is resilient through crises, through ups and downs, like so when you build a business like this, it's so much easier to ride the wave.
Thank you so much. Who wants to go next with the wishes? Selyna?
I can go next. So, okay, so I think, I'll say this, I think fair trade needs to pivot, right? Sometimes when you are a solution in a problem that is prolonged over time, without your knowledge, you become part of the problem. And I say this with a lot of respect, but I feel at this point in this juncture of our world, and we are not talking about, what's happening in Ukraine, to say the least, and all the unsung, unheard of problems that we know our women and our communities go through. I think the time has come for fair trade to pivot, to understand that we have a greater role to play. And yes, in North-South collaboration, but I think also in more. Exactly, I think what Joyce said, how do you use technology for greater transparency? How do you use then technology to get a higher premium for our products so that we know it goes all the way to our people? Lisa, you love this word. How do you create justice in supply chain? This is I think the fair trade movement is far ahead, but still I think we need to pivot, because otherwise we are only part of the problem. Because like I said, when you are just the lone voice, you lose context. So it's time to step back. It's time to understand who we are, what our strengths are. And I think it's time to pivot, to face the new challenges that the world is going to bring. My daughter started school with masks on. This is, do we even know what kind of world we are going into? So I think it's something to take very seriously, and I'm very thankful that there are allies and like-minded individuals like those in this wonderful panel to take the fight on. And I think we can do it. It's just understanding that we need to do it. So yeah, I think that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you so much, Selyna. Very on point. Caterina, Sophie, who wants to go next?
I'll let Sophie do the final remark.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, it is. If the problem is outside us, the problem also starts with us. We could be part of we become part of the problem. Thank you, Selyna, for that. And indeed, one of the things we could improve as one of the things we should work on is to improve ourselves, to bring the movement forward. It is a moment. I feel it. I see it. I work with several corporates, and they need our model, our reference model, but we have to step up our games, both with technology, and absolutely agree with you, Selyna, and with craftsmanship, which could be a controversial thing, but I think we can bring forward that model of humanity, where the crafts of the people and the ability to make beautiful products with our heritage as well has to be combined with technology. And I love that very much, Selyna. Thank you for bringing that point forward. And once more, I think that we have a big role to play ahead. And excuse me if I repeat it, I think we have to make sure that the world understands that it's possible to have a beautiful, again, meaningful and profitable new system, new reference system that we have to champion. So step up again.
And Sophie, last but not least.
Yes, last but not least, what I think that what we need is, and I think it goes in line with what my other colleague said, is that maybe to say it blunt, my colleagues will laugh because I always say that. I think we need to make more noise. I think we are too nice. And I think, look at WFTO, we are 400 members. I mean, the collective action is so important. And I think we need to arrive to this critical mass. And if I think there are two main areas where we should make more noise in, is the first one, like you said, Caterina, is that we are not just a very nice small enterprise that makes some nice products. I think we should be more blunt and saying that we are really a commercial viable alternative that has a lot of sense. And secondly, I really think that we need to work more together on awareness raising and on education, and also tackling stereotypes. I had a very funny example of my son in head, but I don't know, Lisa, if we have the time. But I really think that a lot of people are not even aware, or we should really invest on that. And tackling stereotypes, I think even here in Belgium, they are still all over the place. I think also in schools. And if I just can give the example, it's a stupid example, but I'm the mom of two teenagers. One is a boy of 13. He made in school a present for Mother's Day. And when he gave me the present, he said, he apologized. And he said, I'm really, really sorry. I know it's not an appropriate present, but I told the teacher and she said there was no other option. And he was right, because he was giving me an apron for Mother's Day. And I'm the one cooking at home. It was his dad at that time who was cooking. But the present for the father was a bottle opener. And I think it's really in this very small things. When I talked to the teacher, she understood, and she said, oh yeah, but she didn't think about that. And I think this kind of stereotypes, also tackling that with young people, I think it's so important. I mean, I want my children to grow up with the idea that they need to respect each other and that they have equal rights, and not one has to get an apron and another one has to get a bottle opener. So, well.
Yeah, we definitely had enough time for that, Sophie. Thank you very much. And maybe to sum it up, I mean, when we talk in our book, I mean, we say female entrepreneurs, but in the end, we mean not female, but human. And I think differentiating not between male and female necessarily, but saying, you know, we don't want alpha personalities, or we don't want competition over collaboration. So I think, you know, these kind of, I think it's always important to have discussions about this. And I personally, I mean, we chose this title because we think that there are a lot of ways that women can change the business world that are invisible at the moment. And this is why I wanted, like, our panel also to talk about this. I didn't want to just have a generic conversation about why social entrepreneurship is important, because we are all women and we are doing an amazing job, and there's a lot we could share with the world. So thank you so much for being here and doing this with me. And I could go on forever, but we don't have time for that. I hope that we will continue this, public or non-public. Caterina, you wanted to share an idea, do it. I would love to see you all again very soon, and let's all get together for the loving fight of changing this into, you know, changing our movement, changing the world into a direction that feels more like home to all of us, maybe.
And make noise, right, Sophie?
Yeah,
we have to make like that, right? We have to add the W, the 3.
Yeah.
For the final pictures.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank
See you
you
soon, and have a wonderful Women's Day.
Thank
you,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
You.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Where I grew up, girls were expected to collect water, clean and mind the hearth, while boys went to school. I grew older and was married to a man who did not work. His family, now my family, had no money. In this new family, I faced physical, sexual, and emotional abuse. I felt I had no options. The only places I could find work did not pay well enough to support my family or send my children to school. The conditions were bad, the hours long, and the manager knew we had nowhere else to go. One day, my neighbor told me that she found a new job. She said she was learning new skills and earning a good wage. She invited me to visit her work. The workshop was a busy place with lots of things being made. It was a different world. The manager said that I could work there too.